Okay, I will call the Board of Health special meeting to order. It's November 21st, 2022, and I will ask, is there any amendment to the agenda?
Public comment number 3.
Public comment will be
Under number 3.
Now I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda, please. Second. Thank you, all in favor. Okay, to begin the meeting, I will ask Becky Garland to come forward, please, with her public comment, and also to give the audience and everyone who's come out, and thank you for coming out. I appreciate everyone who's here. How we came to this type of government that we have in place here in Grant County.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First and foremost, I want to state very clearly that I am pro-life. I have a 13-year-old granddaughter who is living proof of that stance. However, my concept of pro-life extends from the moment of a viable conception to death for whatever time that God ordains us to be on this earth. I'm not here in an official government capacity except as Commissioner Orr has requested me to give the background on consolidation. And I would like the record to reflect that I am clocked out. I realize that I'm not a citizen of this county, but I do own property here, and I'm a taxpayer. In addition, my family has been living and working here for 6 generations, and I've worked with the people of this county for over 30 years, 13 and a half of which has been working in this local government. Second, I do want to talk about something that I learned in graduate school, the law of unintended consequences. The law says that no policy, no matter how well intended, can create consequences that could adversely affect our citizens. I want to take a moment to explain, as the former county manager, how it came about that the Board of Commissioners became the Health Board. In 2017, following ongoing issues with the Health Department and DSS that could have cost people lives, the Board, following my recommendation, passed a resolution to consolidate the department under their governance. This recommendation did not come lightly. It was very, very well researched on my part as well as the Board's part. At that time, the Board came under the statutory obligation to create a health advisory committee to do what advisory means: advise the Board on matters relating to the health concerns of the public. Session Law 2012-126/House Bill 438 reads, and this is Section 1A, reads that a Board of County Commissioners that has assumed direct control of a local health board after January 1 of 2012 and that does not delegate the powers and duties of that board to a consolidated health service board shall appoint an advisory committee consistent with the membership described in General Statute 130A-35. The word shall means that the board is mandated by state law to create the board, the advisory board, and to listen to their professional advice and recommendations. Failure to do so results in the unintended consequence of public health and welfare of the people being compromised. Incidentally, this decision was made after Ella became part of the family planning formulary. Therefore, if that decision was wrong, it is not this board who is answerable. It would be the members of the health board who were seated during that time. Okay, so that's how consolidation occurred. And I will stand on the fact that it was the best decision that this board could have made at that time. I also want to make a few more comments. Third, I have heard some statements, and these meetings for which I found it necessary to do some independent research. I did not Google. I consulted with a medical professional who has spent 32 years as a research scientist. I asked her to look for peer-reviewed journals regarding Ella. She went back 10 years. The first statement, Ella in clinical trials was used to abort fetuses in their second trimester, is partially true. There were studies done at UNC Chapel Hill and Stanford University. There were women studied who had lost their pregnancies in the second trimester. Ella was used to try to thin the cervix to make delivery of the dead fetus safer and less traumatic. Using Ella to induce a second trimester abortion to a live fetus for a study is unethical and unconscionable. Number 2, Ella created miscarriages in mice. Partially true. Studies were done on mice because, again, it's not ethical to do certain studies on human bodies, but the mice were given doses 25 to 100 times the therapeutic dose for a human. I call into remembrance the studies about red dyes and cancer and how misinformation created a firestorm in the 1970s. The study that backs this up has a bibliography that is 4 pages long of peer-reviewed research. Number 3, the study that our FNP from the clinic did happen, and the peer-reviewed research confirmed her statements. I also found out that for an FDA-approved drug to be marketed, the pharmaceutical companies are mandated by federal law to advertise the truth. 21 CFR 202 states unequivocally that pharmaceutical companies cannot make false statements in advertising, particularly those that could have serious side or adverse effects. In other words, by HRA Pharma making this statement and the FDA allowing them to make this statement, clinicians, patients, and others can rest assured that this medication does not cause abortion. This statement has the full weight of peer-reviewed and FDA-reviewed clinical and scientific research behind it. Fourth and finally, on a spiritual level, I believe that most of us here would identify as Christian. I know, love, and appreciate each of the parties on both sides of this controversy. I appreciate all the fervor. If we could all have as much passion to change the world as has been displayed here, there would never be any need for homeless shelters, drug treatment centers, or foster homes. I have heard in these meetings that we cannot trust science. To deny science is to deny our God as the creator of this universe. He is the divine physician, scientist, and mathematician. He has given medical science the ability to learn and to treat people. I doubt that if any of us were diagnosed with cancer or diabetes, that we would be Googling the titrator on medications. I think most of us would listen to the healthcare professionals, so why dispute their words now? People have been called murderers in this forum. It's not up to us to judge. Jesus said, "Judge not, lest ye be judged." God does not assign degrees to sin. We do. Sin is sin, whether it is a white lie or murder. The effect is the same because our righteousness is as filthy rags. We need to let God be sovereign. Some women, for whatever reasons, have chosen abortion. This pill is not abortive. It hurts my heart to know that any woman would have to be in a position to make a hard choice. They, like we, answer to a power much higher than this board. Let God be God. The wonderful thing in the equation is that no sin is beyond the reach of His forgiveness unless it is refused. I shudder to think about the type of witness that this controversy has been to our non-Christian friends. In Luke 17, 1-2, Jesus said to His disciples, "Things that cause people to stumble are bound to come, but woe to anyone for whom they come. It would be better for them to be thrown into the sea with a millstone tied around their neck than to cause one of these little ones to stumble." So watch yourselves. Our higher obligation is to point all to Christ as the fruit of the Spirit is manifested in our lives, and to be solved in writing. Now has any of this controversy achieved the ceiling? Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Now we'll call on you, Misty. Show it to speak next.
Good evening, Health Board members, Health Board advisory members, and concerned citizens. I would like to begin by discussing my pedigree, given that in last week's meeting, there were some who suggested that in order to have a valid opinion, you must be from Graham County. My paternal great-great-grandmother was Xenia Savannah Wall, and she was born on Yellow Creek in 1875. My maternal great-great-grandmother was Mary Molly Josephine Ross, and she was born in 1854 in Cheoah. Graham County was officially established in 1872, so I would definitely consider myself a local. Our family has consisted of and continues to consist of ministers, teachers, public officials, business owners, etc., but most importantly, of land-owning, tax-paying citizens. My grandfather, Chief Master Sergeant Bobby Edwards, instilled such a love for our country into each of his grandchildren and children. He made sure that we understood the importance of voting, that we understood the importance of letting our voices be heard. My grandmother, Melba Ann Edwards, installed in us a love of Graham County. Her one goal, as my grandfather was in the military and stationed away from Graham County, was to ensure that they would one day be able to come back home. She tirelessly scraped and pieced back her family property so that her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren would always have a home. My mom and dad taught me to love and follow God, and while I fail daily, I truly do try to live my life in a way that honors God and shines His love on those around me. I stand before you as a proud citizen of the United States, a proud Graham County resident, and as a Christian. One who has worked as a public servant for the past 19 years and pours back into my community in word and deed. As I volunteer at a local nonprofit that continues to care about all the people of Graham County, not just those that believe and act as I do. I believe in the sanctity of all life, both born and unborn. Myself, I consider pro-life. Recently, there was some debate concerning pregnancy prevention. I would like to discuss several of those. All of this information was found on the FDA's required patient leaflets. You know, those ones we never read inside the bottle. As we move forward in our discussion, pay heed to the terms alterations in the endometrium and possible prevention of implantation, or may reduce implantation and thinning of the uterus. You will notice that this is mentioned in a majority of birth control types. Of course, we know abstinence is the number one preventer of pregnancy. Then you have permanent contraceptives, such as sterilization, both male and female. You have long-acting reversible contraceptives, such as IUDs, implantable rods, contraceptive injections. Mirena is a type of implant that is implanted in the uterus as a birth control, and straight from the FDA's website and the patient leaflet, it says that it may work in several ways, including thickening cervical mucus, inhibiting sperm movement, reducing sperm survival, and thinning the lining of your uterus. Lolito is a birth control implant in the uterus. The local mechanism by which continuously released LNG provides contraceptive has not been conclusively demonstrated. It causes the prevention of fertilization due to the thickening of the cervical mucus, which inhibits sperm passage through the cervix, and inhibition of sperm mobility and function, and alteration of the endometrium. Kyleena is a birth control implant, again, in the uterus. It also thickens cervical mucus, preventing passage of sperm into the uterus, inhibition of sperm or survival, and alteration of the endometrium. Skyla, a birth control implanted in the uterus. You get the point. That's the IUDs. The shot, Depo-Provera, again, prevents follicular maturation and ovulation and results in endometrial thinning. We can go down to oral birth control. We have YAS, which are tablets taken by mouth. Again, can cause the endometrial changes that reduce the likelihood of implantation. Orthotricycline, one of the most popular birth controls that is given for pregnancy prevention, changes in the cervical mucus and the endometrium, reduces the likelihood of implantation. And on and on and on. Hopefully you can see clearly now that this isn't about Ella and implantation. This isn't a debate about whether Ella should be allowed because of the risk of it preventing implantation, because as we just heard, the majority of birth controls say the exact same thing as Ella does. And you haven't had anyone here complaining about those. Only you can decide, as our elected officials, whether we are willing to go down the slippery slope of taking away people's rights to choose how their personal beliefs impact their own medical decisions. Some people choose not to have the COVID shot. Others choose not to be given blood. Some choose no vaccinations. Some have a religious preference about the sex of their doctor. Some do not allow the removal of hair from their body prior to surgery. Some religious beliefs are against artificial insemination, in vitro fertilization. Some will not approve any drugs, medical dressings, or implants that contain porcine ingredients. Then there are others who believe in God's healing and refuse traditional medical treatment. And then there are some who choose not to eat ketchup. So do a Google search on ketchup, and you'll see the health benefits of eating ketchup and the health benefits of not eating ketchup. You can Google and find anything. As a Christian, I believe that free will was given by God and began in the Garden of Eden. God placed Adam and Eve in the garden. He told them not to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. He didn't put a barbed wire fence around it. He gave them the free will to be obedient. He knew what was best for them. And we all, in the end, have failed and been disobedient. Even then, God developed a plan for us to be redeemed and have the opportunity to exercise our free will by choosing to believe in Him and give our lives to Him. We cannot begin taking away people's free will and their right to decide what is best for them and their bodies. God didn't. Regardless of your decision tonight, I can only pray that this religious division that results in people feeling that their beliefs are superior to everyone else's would not continue. You and I don't have to agree on every aspect of our religious beliefs or moral views, but we should respect one another. My final thought is that if this were another religion that said we shouldn't do this or that in the health department because it isn't something I agree with, how would we feel?
Thank you, Missy. And now we'll call on Maria Shook. Okay.
Thank y'all for letting us speak. I'm Maria Shook. I'm a lifelong resident of Graham County, and I am a born-again Christian. And none of those things gives me the right to tell anyone else what to do as far as birth control. I want to begin by telling you who your health department is. I was 42. I hadn't been feeling well at all. I had Googled my symptoms, and Google said it was either menopause, possibly a brain tumor. I figured that menopause was cheaper, so I called Sean Turpin at our health department, and I asked her if they did a test for menopause. Sean informed me that it sounded more like pregnancy than menopause. And if I would come to the health department first thing in the morning, they'd get to the bottom of it. Lauren Garland was the nurse at the time. She took me into the room. She took my urine and administered my test. When she returned, she brought reinforcements. She brought Lori Taylor and Sean Turpin back with her. They told me not to Google anything else ever. They said, you're pregnant, and it's okay. Loretta had been through the same thing as I had been through, so I guess that's why they brought Loretta in, was to convince me that everything was going to be okay. Not one time, even though at 42, I was high risk, I'd had 3 miscarriages, not one time did they bring up abortion. Not one time. What I got in that little room with these women was nothing but encouragement and reassurance that everything was going to be okay. And they were going to stand behind me the whole way. And they did. My doctor, I couldn't get in for 2 months. Loretta was calling daily to check on me because I think she thought I was going to go over the deep end. And so I told Loretta, I said, I can't get in for 2 months. This drives me crazy. She knew of my past miscarriages. So she said, I'm going to get on the phone. And if your doctor won't get you in, I'll drive you to Knoxville myself, and you will see this baby. So sure enough, she called my doctor. I don't know if she told him I was half crazy or what, but he got me in. It didn't stop at that. Those health department employees had my back that entire pregnancy. It was every week, it was every month that they were there for me. Even after he was born, I was getting phone calls. The only time I utilized their service was a pregnancy test, and they still followed up with me the entire time. That is who our health department is. They make people feel safe. They make people feel secure. And they should be able to be made feel as safe as they make this community feel. I am against abortion. However, I am 100% for contraceptives and emergency contraceptives. Abortions in this country have gone down since contraceptives came available. Emergency contraceptives are not inherently sinful. Married couples have accidents and they need ECs to avoid unwanted pregnancies. There are women with certain disorders in which pregnancy could be dangerous, such as cancer, cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disease, and clotting, just to name a few. In each case, access to their contraceptives prevents what would otherwise be an abortion or serious medical issue for both mother and child. Nothing in the real world is black and white, and treating this issue as such will do nothing but harm. Right now, you're being asked to pull Ella. Right now, you're being asked to go against an established standard of care because of a misunderstanding and Google. Right now, you are being asked to go against medical advice by doctors in lieu of misinformation. I now stand here to ask you, where will it stop? It won't stop at Ella. Will it go to Plan B, birth control? If one of your Christian community leaders demands with fervor that condoms be banned because they empower sin, will we move to stop those as well? I know this may sound absurd, but I can assure you that even having to make this argument has a large part of our community baffled. Public health was established and should remain for everyone, regardless of economic status, political affiliation, religion, or sex. I am asking you to please vote for the rights of women and family in this community to choose for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And I will ask Christine Chris to speak now.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing us all to be here tonight and to speak. The recent Board of Health and Board of Commissioners meeting have been very heated. A lot of science was brought up. A lot of religion was brought up. I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I read the Bible. I will confess I haven't read it cover to cover. I'm not as diligent as I should be. I've attended Sunday services and Sunday school. Not once did I learn it was very important that I enforce my religious beliefs on others around me. Nor did I learn to wield my faith as a weapon against whomever does not see things my way. Nor did I learn to use faith as a way to coerce government to pass laws and make decisions to force my viewpoints on others who do not agree with me. I did, however, learn that others see God's love through my actions, and I should love others as He loves me. I am not saying this is easy. I am not saying that I don't come short of that, but that is my goal every single day of my life. Matthew 22:37-40 in the New King James Version says, Jesus said unto him, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all of the law and the prophets. I find that the Bible faith belief seem to be up to a lot of interpretation. I believe that loving others as God loves me matters much more than me telling others that it is a sin because they need emergency contraceptive services to prevent a pregnancy they cannot afford, did not want, and did not plan. Our country was founded on religious and personal freedom. Our ancestors left home countries because of oppression and a desire to worship and live freely. Our Constitution's First Amendment addresses this. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. When we begin using religion to get voters to vote for us, or use it to get politicians to make laws based on our religious beliefs, we are at risk of this pendulum swinging and someone else gaining the majority and using the government to force upon us religious beliefs we do not hold firm. It is a dangerous and slippery slope. Women in our country have had to fight for everything. We fought for our right to own property. We fought for the right to vote. We fought for our right to be educated. Even our right to open a checking account or own a credit card prior to the 1970s was something we had to fight for. We still fight for equality. We should not have to fight for the right to make our own reproductive decisions. No one should be forcing their beliefs on us as a country founded on freedom. I also do not believe we should live in a country devoid of any type of reliance on science. We cannot pick and choose which science we are okay with and which science is sin. Things that came from science that probably everyone in this room used before or relied on to get here tonight. Technology for farming, processing our food, electricity that cooks our food, allows us to bathe in hot water, run our cell phones, alarm clocks, the clothing we wear to get here tonight, the hygiene products and toothpaste we use to get ready for tonight, gasoline in our cars and our cars themselves, medication for our health and wellness. If one is going to criticize science as bad and wrong and sin, should one rely on any science at all? Over the last 2 weeks, there have been several very well-educated, intelligent people speaking on behalf of all the women in Graham County, explaining the science and use behind the Plan B or morning after pill and Ella. These people who have medical backgrounds have stated to all of us that these methods do not abort a pregnancy and are not used for that purpose. I believe that our Board of Health needs to rely on professionals in medicine who are knowledgeable in this subject rather than people with no medical background and only internet searches and religious beliefs. I also want the board to be aware that after looking at the insurance policy that is provided by the Board of Commissioners and provided to all county employees, on page 35, under elective termination of pregnancy, that our insurance, Graham County's insurance, provides benefits for abortion are available through the first 16 weeks of pregnancy for all female members except dependent children. This is Graham County's insurance that you all are providing county employees. Furthermore, it also provides contraception, education, counseling, and contraceptive methods. And this is on an addendum to sexual health. When you go to the family planning section of our benefits policy, it gives you a link that brings you to this section. Services for contraceptive device removal will be provided at no cost. The following contraceptive methods, devices, and associated procedures, such as device removal and pharmaceutical contraceptions, for women with reproductive capacity shall include emergency contraception, i.e. the morning after pill, Plan B, and Ella. I respectfully request that all elected members of the Board of Health and our commissioners remember that they should be upholding the Constitution of the United States of America as it represents every single person in their community, and not just the ones they see eye to eye with, especially with this decision that you all are charged with making tonight. If you are not a woman, you should not be making medical decisions or reproductive decisions that affect a woman's health unless you can separate your gender from your decision. Keep your faith, but keep it separate from your decisions here tonight. Women in this community are relying on you today to allow the health department to continue to provide these contraception services. And if you vote against it and choose that we will just be referring people out, you're discriminating against every woman in this community that does not have health insurance or is underinsured, because you're taking away someplace they feel safe to go for something that they feel that they need. And I'm asking you to take this into consideration when you make your decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. I will now ask Joe Dano to speak.
Well, thank you, members of the board and the health department board. I'd just like to start by saying there's been a lot about the Bible said, so I encourage you to read Jeremiah 1:5 and Psalms 139. And pray that God gives you clear conscience on that. Some might say that I'm just a uneducated white guy. Some people may say I'm a man. Why do I have a voice? Well, I am a man, and I know I can't have a baby. Some people think that men can have babies, but I don't believe so. I'm going to tell you why I think that a man can have a voice in this. I've been married to my wife for 42 years. Her mom tried to abort her. And I don't know, she may get up and tell you about that, or she may not. I live at 1612 Panther Creek Road. All three of my children graduated from Robbinsville. 4 of my grandchildren have attended school here. 2 of those would not be here if it wasn't for adoption. My daughter was unable to have children. A high school student at age 15 had a baby. And now I have a 4-year-old granddaughter. So I do have a voice. I have a little boy, Jordan's parents. He's on the Far West wrestling team and won 4 matches out of 6 at age 5. I think that's pretty good. I work with a gentleman at Duke Power here that either adopted or fostered over 30 or 40 children. And y'all know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to say his name, but I'm pretty sure some of y'all know who that is. And the last one, why I have a voice, is our 3rd child. And I know some of y'all know her. She was a kicker for the football team. She won a volleyball scholarship. You know what the health department and science told me to do to that little girl? before she was born. They said, oh, you're at high risk. You're going to have a Down syndrome baby. You need to go to the University of Florida and talk to them. That'll set you back. Carolyn and I drove up there. Health officials sitting there. And they said, yeah, we've done all the tests and all these things. And the best choice you have is to abort this little baby. I said, no, if my God gives me a Down syndrome baby, I'm going to have a Down syndrome baby. We went through the whole pregnancy, had a beautiful baby girl. She won a volleyball scholarship, and now she's blessed me with a grandson, 14 months. You know, it's just hard to conceive. And when I was in school, it used to be say no to drugs and say no to these things. And there's options out there to keep from getting pregnant. Some people mentioned that. But I think that some of us do have a voice. Some of us have been affected by these situations. I couldn't imagine not having 2 of my grandchildren. And it was a blessing to the 2 young people that gave them up. And I would just encourage you to really deep down think about it and say, what would God do? He said, bring the children to me. And the last thing I would like, and I didn't have much time because I got on the tangent on this a little bit. The Hobby Lobby lawsuit, which Hobby Lobby won, I believe, from the Supreme Court. There's a few things there. And I'm not trying to push any religion on anybody. I'm not trying to keep you from making a personal choice, because that's your personal choice. But I encourage you to read Jeremiah 1:5 and Psalms 139 and think about how maybe there's some other options of true education and true alternatives to termination. And then I also would like to consider, maybe the board would consider making Graham County a sanctuary for life. Thing that we could say we're not going to perform abortions in this county. And, it blows my mind that there's some people think that we can let the child be born and then take their life. And I know we're not at that point now, but it's little by little by little by little. Thank you very much, and God bless everybody.
Thank you, Joe. Now we'll ask Carolyn to speak, please.
I'm so nervous. I'm about ready to shake right out of my boots. I know sometimes you don't know what you're called to do. And I didn't know until just recently. In 1959, my mom got pregnant with me. This is the first time I've ever shared the story with anyone but my husband. And my mom didn't want to have a third child. She wasn't in a happy marriage, and she wasn't a happy person. And so she went to the doctor. And I know they say back in 1959 they didn't have medication for abortion. But if you have the right doctor, he can make a concoction that he can give you. Well, I told my mom to go home and take this, and she would spontaneously miscarry or spontaneously abort her fetus. Well, according to my mom, that damn fetus didn't die. It lived. It took me until I was 40 years old to realize I was that damn fetus. I was born at 5 pounds, full term. My dad talks about how the skin just hung on my body because I was malnourished in the womb. Because a clot got between me and the placenta. And, but I was born. She had me anyway. She wasn't happy to be my mother. So my dad had to step in. My dad's the one that fed me. My dad's the one that held me. My dad's the one that told me, Carolyn, you count. I remember the day that we were talking about our names. And my brother's named after my grandfather and my uncle who gave his life in World War II. My sister's named after my aunt. I said, well, who am I named after? My mom turned to me and said, the retarded girl across the street. That made me feel like, wow, at the age of 10 or 11 years old, to find out that that's who you're named after. Because she wasn't proud of you. Now, I have to admit, later on in life, I did have somewhat of a pretty good relationship with my mom. But I survived. And now I've come to the realization, I survived for this moment, right here, right now. For Jesus Christ is my Savior. And He, I know, forgave my mother for that sin that she committed. And I know He forgives me. I had no idea a week ago or yesterday or the day before this afternoon that I would even mention this to anyone. Because it's a realization that I wasn't wanted by my mother. But I was wanted by my God. I was wanted by my Savior. I have 3 fabulous kids. I have 6 gorgeous grandkids. And I'll have great-grandchildren too. I love holding them. I love being with them. I am so thankful for this day. I don't envy the decisions that you have to make. I pray for you because this is a hard decision. I don't know a lot about what this pill contains or anything like that. But I'll tell you what, those little babies that are created in that womb are there for a purpose. Every single one of them. And whether Mom wanted it, Dad wanted it, didn't want it, God doesn't make mistakes. I thank you so much for this opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Carolyn. And now I will ask Claudine. Get ready.
I don't really have a whole lot of new things to add to what I'd like to present to you, other than I want to speak in your defense. They were talking about an insurance policy that pays for abortion. Well, as long as I had that insurance policy with Blue Cross Blue Shield, y'all opted not to participate in that. How that was put in or overlooked, I don't know. But, it's always been Graham County's policy to not include those services in your group health plan. and up until that change was made, it was not included. So I just wanted to let y'all know that. The other thing with Ella, as I've said in the 2 previous meetings, is a very controversial drug. That's the reason that a lot of the health departments in the smaller communities don't offer it, because it is so controversial. FDA has warning labels on everything. Ella's not exempt from those labels, but because it is so controversial, I don't believe that it should be offered in a local health department. No one is trying to determine whether a woman has a right to choose, as far as my perspective goes, with what to do with their body. That's between them and God, and we all have choices to make. But it is your decision to determine whether or not this controversial drug is a good fit for our community and for the health department. And that's what you are here to do, to decide that for us. So FDA has told you that this prohibits a fetus from attaching to the lining. Other drugs may do that as well. We're here about Ella. And, if anybody wants to take up any of the other drugs throughout, that's another discussion. But the Ella pill is a lot more controversial than the other pills. And that's what brings us here, because it contains the ulcrystal acetate, which is the same drug that's in the true abortion pill. So that's your decision to make. And I will tell you, today I was standing at my sink and I don't feel worthy. I don't feel worthy at all to stand up here and tell you about God and God's plan. But I can tell you that God forgives us all for our sins, and I'm very thankful for that. But I will tell you that I have been trying to pitch this to you because Brandy pitched it from a Christian point of view. I've tried to give you the wisdom from a scientific point of view, to give you the out that you need scientifically to make a decision without ACLU coming on your butt. You just say, well, we're not doing it because of religion, we're doing it because FDA and it's not a fit, and so, we're just not going to put it in the health department. And you can still do that because all of that applies. But at 3 o'clock today, it's just like God said, you know what? The President of the United States, Congress, senators, our governors, they all make religious decisions. And you are not immune to that. And we do have the right to stand here and ask you to do it, because that's what God tells us to do, is to make decisions based on God's Word and God's Word alone. And God will take care of the rest. But I'll leave you with this. Just give me a second to get back on here. Prayers for you. Stay strong. Anytime you stand for God, there will be opposition. I will support you in any way I can. I appreciate you. It was a great meeting. I'm so excited for how God is working through you. Stay strong. That was sent from a member of Graham County Health Department to my daughter the day that she visited that. Yeah. That speaks volumes. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Claudine. And now I will ask the advisory board, the health advisory board, if any of you have a comment that I invite you to make, if you do.
The only comment I have is, did you guys receive the emails that we have sent as a health advisory board? Did all of you receive an email from us?
I think you have a copy of it there, and I'd be happy to read it for the audience, the one that I sent.
If you'd like to do that.
Do you have a copy of the green one?
Um,
And Jim's up a little bit today and not quite
That's fine.
up to speed, but I'm trying.
Maybe behind one of the others that's stable.
Reading it from a paper would be easier.
There's 2 or 3 the other day that's stable together.
This one? And one more question.
They had to say yes.
Here it is.
This is a whole bunch. Let me try to find mine. No, this isn't it. Do you have it, Kelsey?
Bear with us if you please. One, three.
It's kind of little. Okay, this was an email sent to the Board of Commissioners, and
Pardon me, Doctor.
I'm sorry.
Pull the mic, I'm just kidding.
to the Board of Health. I wrote it, and the members of the Advisory Health Board, Dr. Ware, Jill, Dr. Cody, all signed on to it. Brooke Coates was a former member of the advisory board of the, what is it, Health Advisory Board. She also would like to ask to have her name attached to it. Dr. Cody actually didn't sign it because it refers to a learning module that the Board of Commissioners had, but she had not gone through that learning module herself, and because of that, she wanted to make her own statement. I did not get a response from other members of the Health Advisory Board, so we did not have, well, one of them is a member of the Board of Health, so it's understandable that he didn't respond. So we had 5 members, 5 names on the email, and now I've lost it. Kelsey, let me just say this. Isn't science wonderful? Thank you. Okay. To the Graham County Board of Health. This is actually, the matter that we're discussing has never been formally articulated by anyone, as far as I can tell. But with respect to the ban of the emergency contraceptive Ella demanded by 2 of the county's citizens, I feel compelled to make a few points that I hope your lawyer has made to you as well. My points are based on the training modules you were required to pass recently, and then I gave the link to that, to the training module. The points are the following. The Board of Commissioners may pass a local public health rule if that rule is more stringent than the state or federal rules. A ban of Ella's administration at the health department would certainly be more stringent, but it should be able to pass the following tests. Oops. Number 1, it must be reasonable in light of the health risks addressed. Now, my response to that is one could say that a ban might, in a very unlikely situation, protect the viability of a fertilized egg, not an embryo, not a pregnancy, a fertilized egg, which is 1, possibly 2 cells. No brain, no heart, no backbone, no nerves, 2 cells at most. It might be just 1 cell. So Ella might protect the viability of a fertilized egg. It would be far more likely to negatively affect the physical and mental health of the person at risk of unwanted pregnancy. Pregnancy is a well-proven health risk for women, even those who want it. It's a health risk, especially teenagers. An unwanted pregnancy carries even more health risks for both mother and child and increases abortions. Number 2, a local health rule must address a local health concern. The Board of Commissioners or the Board of Health would have to show why a ban on Ella is necessary in this county as opposed to all the other counties in the state of North Carolina. Number 3, a local health rule must not be discriminatory. A ban on Ella would be discriminatory against women who weigh over 165 pounds because it's literally their only emergency contraceptive hope. Number 4, the board should have a stated rationale for the ban. The rationale for a ban would presumably be the possibility that if Ella is taken shortly after fertilization of an ovum, it might interfere with the implantation of the egg, the fertilized egg. Without going into the morass of opinions about whether this constitutes an abortion, it's obvious that a ban would be a rationale based on a religious belief. In other words, it would be imposing a religious belief on an agency charged with the execution of federal and state mandates. If a patient is eligible for and desires to take Ella, she must be referred to a source that can provide it so the end result is unaltered. Logically, that defeats the rationale for the ban. In addition, a ban is unnecessary. Any health department patient is free to refuse any health department treatment and may even refuse to be counseled or to receive information about treatments they object to. Also, a health department employee is free to defer to a colleague if policies require them to do something that is against their personal beliefs. Respectfully, Catherine Lynch, MD, and then the other names that I mentioned were appended to that. So whether you believe that Ella is an abortion or not, the County Board of Health really cannot make a viable rule on that matter, in my opinion.
I'm a local dentist, also serve as a member of the Health Advisory Board, and I apologize for not doing my modules, but I have done my own response. And
Pardon me, Counselor, would you raise the mic?
yes, can you hear me? Commissioner Orr, per your request, I'm responding to your questions regarding family planning services at the Graham County Health Department, specifically Ella. I support the medical evidence presented by our local medical providers, Jill Reamer and Caitlin Martin, at the last advisory board and commissioners meeting. My understanding is that Ella is an emergency contraceptive, non-abortion pill. Any change to Graham County citizens' access to emergency contraceptives disproportionately impacts women's health in our community, and I urge you to leave these medical decisions between the provider and their patients. Thank you.
Okay, at this time I will ask the board if they have any comments to make, and we'll start with you, Jacob,
Okay.
Commissioner Now.
I'll be
be short. A lot of the stuff I'm going to say is repetitive. I want to start off by saying I am 100% pro-life, period. I'm completely against abortion. If you know me, you know this is true. North Carolina Administrative Code 46.0201 mandated services under the authority of North Carolina General Statute 130A-9 reads, the following is a list of mandated services required to be provided in every county of this state. The local health department shall provide or ensure the provision of these services in accordance with the rules in this section. Drop down to number 11, and you say family planning. North Carolina Administrative Code 46.0206, family planning reads, a local health department shall provide a contract for the provision of or certify the availability of family planning services for all individuals within the jurisdiction of the local health department. A local health department shall establish, implement, and maintain written policies which shall include, you jump on down, provisions of contraceptive information and the use of informed consent procedures when prescribing a method of contraception. So my understanding is that when a lady comes into our health department seeking family planning services, specifically emergency contraception, they're evaluated and screened to establish their need. If they're eligible for emergency contraception, they're then counseled on all their options. If Ella is an option for them, and they choose this option, whether Graham County Health Department has it or not, it doesn't matter. We have to refer to them and see that they have access to it. So in my mind, removing Ella from the Graham County Health Department isn't restricting the availability of it necessarily. The division and the dissension throughout our community and the Christian community, to me, is the most upsetting thing. I've spoken to good people. I've spoken to Christian people on both sides of this discussion. I will never question one's power to do what God calls them to do ever. That's not my place. But my opinion is that Graham County isn't the place for this fight. Not with our neighbors, not with our friends, and not with our families. Unfortunately, a brilliant idea was posed months ago and has been lost in the weeds of this ordeal. Establishing a pregnancy center in our community is, in my view, a resource that everyone can support and that can make a lifelong impact in the lives of our mothers, our children, and our families. My hope and my prayer is, regardless of the decision that's made here tonight, that we can come together as a community, that we can come together in agreement, and we can develop strategies that will benefit everyone in Graham County.
Commissioner Cummings?
There's not a whole lot that I can add to what Jacob has already mentioned. One of the things is our staff that we currently have has been loyal and dedicated to every person that has come to their facilities. And the people serving on the boards to make sure that this happens has been outstanding. And one of the things is we all have different beliefs. Our beliefs is what God has given us to be freely to express. I've expressed those with different board members and staff, and I want to stand by. But my goal is to make sure that everybody in this county is given the right to have and to receive the proper care that they're deserving. And as Jacob stated, a plan seemed like it was blown out of proportion, that we could all come together and to make something happen for each and individual that is in need. And I hope that each person here in this room can support that and to make it happen. And as Jacob stated, whatever becomes of this, we all have to stay, we have to protect our home. And the only way we can do that is come together and work together. Sometimes our ideas does not match, our agreements does not match. We bicker amongst each other. But in the long run, we must come together, make it happen. Thank you.
I don't have a whole lot to add to what's been said here. I know that I'm not, the decisions that I've come up with, I've not based it on one side or the other. I've listened to both sides, and I've done my own checking and stuff, and that's where my decision was made. Everything that's been said here, I agree 100% with. Thank you, Madam Chair. When this situation first came to light, I had no knowledge really of emergency contraception and the different types of medication that were used for these purposes. As a result of that, I have learned some things about the subject for sure. I understand that these medications are controversial to some people. I really and truly understand that. Over the last couple of months, I've sat in on a couple of meetings where this topic was the major subject at a couple of those, and I've listened to people on both sides of the issue present their arguments as to why their opinion is the right opinion. I've seen multiple documents presented as proof of right by both sides. If you take the time to do an internet search about this pill, Ella, you'll find numerous documents related to studies about Ella. For every document that you find that says something negative about Ella, you'll also find the documents that support Ella. From what I understand, Ella has been an option at the health department since 2015, 7 years. And I further understand that not once in those 7 years has LA been prescribed. One of the comments from last Tuesday's commissioners meeting was that since it's so controversial, it should be something discussed between a woman and her doctor in a doctor's office. I agree with most of that statement. It should be a private discussion between a woman and her health care provider. Having it with a doctor in a private practice is a good option for those with health insurance or the money to pay the doctor visit and the money to pay the $70 or so that one pill will cost. But that's not the kind of person that the health department sees. They see people at or below the poverty level and have no insurance. They don't have the money to pay for a doctor's office visit, and they don't have the money to pay for a pill that will cost them $70. Some people say that we need to just remove Ella from the health department. It would be nothing more than a symbolic gesture. For those women who have health insurance or money, nothing changes. They can still go to their primary care doctor and get Ella prescribed and go to a pharmacy and have that prescription filled. The only segment of the population impacted by a decision to remove it as an option from the health department are those women who are living in poverty and don't have the resources to go to the doctor. County commissioners have to represent all of the people. People have different needs and circumstances in life. The people who will be denied access of the Ella field are those who don't have another option and don't need or don't want to bring another child into poverty. Whether to allow these women the option to choose Ella or not should not rest on the shoulders of some board of commissioners or some health board. It should be the decision of the woman needing the emergency contraception. It should be done in private with healthcare providers who will take the time to explain the options and all the risks. In closing, I want to say to all of the health department employees that I regret that you have had your working lives and your personal lives under such intense scrutiny for just doing your job. You didn't deserve that. You serve a segment of the population that has few options, and you treat those people with dignity and love when they come to your door needing some help. I, for one, appreciate what you do. Based on that, I cannot support the removal of Ella as an option for emergency contraception at the health department. As far as I'm concerned, no governing body from local to federal has any role in a woman's decision about her contraceptive needs. That is for the woman and her provider to decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wiggins. And that just gives me now, and the first thing I'd like to do is ask every healthcare worker or provider to stand.
Does X count?
Except you. That's what you'll have to. Let's give them a round of I'd like to thank all of you personally, every single one of you. This board has been entrusted to represent the entire county, regardless of color, religion, sex, national origin, age, disability, and will remain entrusted and committed to do that. I've had some experience, and may I say, Carolyn, you're a blessing to all of us. I've had some experience with a little nephew who was announced to be a Down syndrome child, and the doctor suggested strongly to my sister that the child be aborted. He wasn't, and we love him dearly. And I thank you, Dr. Lynch, personally. I had some really serious health problems last year. I don't recommend that all of you do this, but she will answer the phone at 5 o'clock in the morning. So thank you very much for that. I'd like to also take the opportunity to thank you, Loretta Eller, for all you've done. Work that you put in to the urgent care, and I appreciate it. And let's give her. That concludes my comments, and that's as far as I can go. And now, clerk, if you will, is there any closed session business? Council, is there any closed session? Okay, so we are coming to a vote. If you will help me state that, clerk, so how it needs to be in the minutes, please.
I don't have my paperwork in front of me, but I will just say, I guess one of one at a time, state your vote, yay to remove or nay. So I don't know what you want to do. It's you as a board that can decide. Keep on the shelf or take off, I guess, is how you do it.
The only thing I will say to the board is the purpose of the report that I've given to you was to determine if Graham County is exposed to any liability for the dismissal of Ms. Adams from her employment at Appalachian Mountain Community Health Center. And the offense concerned 2 emergency contraceptive pills and whether or not that was allegedly led to her dismissal. That was how we got started on this. And I think I've given you a 10-page report in detail with notes that probably amounts to a 70-page document to make a decision about that purpose. Somehow, this has evolved into something completely different. I just want to make sure you understand that. My purpose that was requested of me was to advise you whether or not there was any liability on the part of the county for her dismissal. And I think I've given you enough to make a decision about that. The other decision about whether to keep Ella on the shelf or off the shelf, or provided or not provided, is something that has evolved out of that original purpose. And if you feel as a health board you need to make a decision on that tonight, then you're perfectly free to do it.
Okay. So then I think what I'm hearing said is that the motion would be to leave Ella on the shelf at the health department. Do I hear a motion to do so?
Motion.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? All right. If there is nothing further, do I hear a motion to adjourn?